Good evening. We'll go ahead and get started. I figure we'll have a few more trickle in as we get going, but I do want to respect your time. My name's Chris Babb. I'm the Communications Director for the Arkadelphia Public School District, and I'd like to thank you for attending tonight. We began planning this night in February, and then 1 week later we had to institute our first lockout because of a bank robbery in town. And that served as a good test for us in a variety of ways and showed us ways that we needed to improve our preparation for an event such as this. I would remind, if you did not sign in, if you would please do that, and also feel free to take one of the forms, the sheets that has information on our 4 different areas of the standard response protocol. I want to give you an agenda for the evening and take care of a few housekeeping items before we get started. First, to keep in mind that we are talking about different levels of emergency situations that could take place in a school setting, although we obviously hope we never encounter any of those types of situations that we hear of happening in different places. But we are, it's due to the nature of some of the content, we are talking about emergency situations, and I was particularly aiming that towards anybody who might have brought small children in, but we don't look like we have that right now, so that's I can skip that part. Second, we won't be opening the floor up for questions at the end, but rather we'll have, we've come up with some frequently asked questions that have come up in a couple of our meetings when we met as an administrative team, and also when we met with a smaller group of parents from each school. We opened it up for questions, and then because of the nature of some of these, you kind of just go scenario to scenario and what if to what if. So what we have done is come up with some FAQs that we'll go over at the end, and also Officer Dwayne Ward, our school resource officer, will be able to stick around. We're going to have his email address, and also he's willing to stick around and ask any questions you may have at the end of the evening. Let me give you an idea of how tonight will go. Miss Nikki Thomas will speak on behalf of the administration and from the principal's perspective of the standard response protocol. Arkadelphia Police Department School Resource Officer Dwayne Ward will explain the standard response protocol to us. We'll talk about how the district will communicate with parents in the event of an emergency. And finally, we will close with frequently asked questions that I mentioned earlier. I would like to take time to acknowledge several of our law enforcement and emergency personnel that have joined us tonight. If you would, we got several up front here. If you would please stand and wave. Andy, representing the fire department, thank you for coming out. Thank you for your support of our students and for your part in the way you help out with this program as well. Again, thank you for being here, and at this time I'll turn it over to Miss Nikki Thomas.
Good evening, and thank you again for being here tonight. I know this is a very busy time of the year. We got lots of kids' activities going on, so we do appreciate you making the effort to come out tonight and learn more about our protocol here in the Arkadelphia School District. As Chris said, I am Nikki Thomas. I'm the principal of Goza Middle School. Dr. Turner, our acting superintendent, sends her apologies for not being able to be here tonight, and she asked me to come in her place as the representative of the district administrative team. First, I wanted to share with you of how we came to adopt the protocol that we'll be discussing tonight. It has been an ongoing process throughout this entire school year. After a training last summer, our school resource officer, Officer Ward, approached Dr. Jeanette Turner, who at the time was our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, about the standard response protocol as outlined by the I Love You Guys Foundation. He was really excited about the program, and you'll see that when he visits with you in a few minutes, and the protocol and the consistency that it could provide our district. We have had emergency plans in the past, so this is not the first time we've ever had an emergency plan. We've always had emergency plans. However, it was not a seamless plan from building to building. After the meeting with Officer Ward, Dr. Turner did arrange a meeting with the principals, where he then shared the program with us to get our feedback. We all agreed that it was a really good protocol, and we loved the fact that students in kindergarten would know what the various terms mean as they progress through all schools in the district. Consistency was a huge selling point for us. After that meeting, the principals then arranged times for Officer Ward to come present the program to our faculties and staff, and that included everyone, our custodians, our cafeteria workers, our office staff. We wanted everyone in the school to know the protocol. These training sessions occurred right before or soon after the start of the school year. After the staff was trained, each school determined the best way to present that protocol to their students, because different age groups need different approaches. Additionally, we have been working on making sure our substitute teachers are also informed. We have lanyards that have the protocol on a card that they are able to wear while they're at school in the building. And we also have posters similar to what you picked up as a handout tonight, just all over the school, throughout the school in the classrooms. In January, district representatives met with city and county officials to determine a common plan for communication when there is implementation of one of the protocols. This communication plan will be shared with you by Mr. Babb later this evening. In February, the principals met again with Dr. Turner, Mr. Babb, Officer Ward, to determine the best way to get information out to parents, because we want our parents to know what their children are learning at school and the ways that we're trying to keep them safe. It was determined then that we would start with a presentation to a small group of parents representing each school that attended the district parent involvement meeting in March, and then have a follow-up presentation offered in the evening in April, which brings us to tonight. From tonight, we hope that you will have the information you need to make any situation, whether it be a lockout, lockdown, evacuation, or sheltering, go as smoothly and safely as possible for everyone involved. It is also important to understand that this is not just a program to use when there is a scenario such as an active shooter, worst case scenario, but also for situations that may be weather-related emergencies. Our goal is to make sure that all of us are on the same page when these situations arise, so that we can take the best care possible of your children. I do ask that you pay particular attention to the instructions that Officer Ward will provide you regarding what we need you to do in these situations, and the reunification process if an evacuation is necessary, so that we will be able to connect you with your child as soon as possible. We are looking forward to working with you to make sure nothing hinders the authorities in securing facilities and resolving situations as quickly as possible. The safety of our students in these situations is our number one priority. At this time, Officer Ward will share some more information with you about the standard response protocol that has been implemented in our district. Again, thank you for coming tonight.
For anybody that doesn't know me, my name is Officer Ward. I am an SRO here at the district. This summer, John Michael Keyes came to OBU and spoke to a group of administrators and just school officials. And whenever he spoke to us, yeah, she's right. It just hit me. And they talked about starting the I Love You Guys Foundation. And it's a whole lot easier for me to let y'all watch the video than me tell the story. Because if you don't know me, I don't do real good with the little tearjerker stories. So watch the video. What it is, it's about a 4 or 5 minute video of how the I Love You Guys Foundation got started.
September 27, 2006 began like any other school day for the Keyes family, with Mother Ellen dropping off her 16-year-old twins, Emily and Casey.
We were running a little bit late, so we didn't get a hug, but no big deal. We got the I love yous, and that's so important.
But just a few hours later, the unthinkable. Ellen got word that something was terribly wrong at school.
she gave me a call and said something's going on at the school. Shots fired in room 206.
Room 206 was Emily's classroom, and as her dad raced for the school, horrific details began to emerge. A gunman had snuck into Platte Canyon High School and had taken 7 girls hostage, among them their daughter Emily.
That was scary. That was real scary.
You knew there were guns.
A gun, at least.
A gun, and you knew the possibility of a bomb at that point? You did know that?
Yeah.
Amid the chaos outside, John Michael became desperate to make contact with his daughter.
I look at my cell phone, and I've never sent a text message. And I looked around and I said, is there anyone here under 30? I need to do a text message. And the reporter from the Flume was up there, and she looked at the phone and quickly typed in the letter R, U, okay.
So Emily receives a text message, are you okay?
Yeah. In that room. And within minutes, I get one back. And it says, I love you guys.
When you saw that?
You know, in hindsight, I'm saying she's in there, she's scared. Horrible things happening in that room, and she sends that. It's an amazing little woman.
And then he did text her back after that.
Said, where are you? Nothing.
Hours passed. One by one, the gunmen started releasing hostages. Each had disturbing news about the scene in the classroom.
Each one of them had been molested some way.
But 2 terrified girls were still inside. One of them was Emily, and after hearing of the assault, authorities made a fateful decision to send in the SWAT team.
I heard gunfire. I said, what's going on? And it's not good. We don't know yet, but it's not good. And they brought Emily out in front of me, 30 yards away maybe. At that point, I learned about where she'd been shot.
Before taking his own life, the gunman shot and killed Emily Keyes. It was just 2 weeks after her 16th birthday.
She's our little hero.
She was a force of nature. She was magic. I miss her. God.
Today, the Keyes family is determined to turn this tragedy into something positive. They started the I Love You Guys Foundation and work full-time in helping to promote school safety. A family forever comforted by those 4 simple but now so meaningful words.
And that is why it's hard for me to tell that story. First off, so I can get this out of the way, if I trip over this mic cord, everybody laugh at me, please. Okay? I had to say something. I'm sorry. This is a very serious matter for me. And it's hard, excuse me, it's hard for me to be a serious person. But I change when it comes to the standard response protocol for students and teachers. It says for students and teachers, but it's also for the parents. I need y'all to understand what's going on. I need you to understand the words. It's the basis of the standard response protocol. The way the I Love You Guys Foundation wrote this up is it says shared lexicon. I did not care for the word shared lexicon because it made me feel very unintelligent. I didn't know what it meant. I know what common language means. It's common terminology between all schools in our district. If you have one in pre-K, you have one in junior or high school, and it's lockdown, it's lockdown. It's the same through the whole district. But one of the nice things about the standard response protocol, they require me or whoever the person is that's doing the training to train all of these guys, the fire department. Everybody needs to know about it because those are the first responders are going to be the ones that show up. That's why we share it with the first responders. All of these people, if they have the ability to wear a badge or they wear a badge, that will be the first people there. And the second people will be parents. That's just the way it works. But we're going to talk about that. Share it with the students. You would share it with the students because, yes, They're going to be there, the ones at the schools. They're going to be the ones that need it. Shared with staff. We need the staff to know how to tell the students what to do. Like Ms. Thomas was talking about, the level of training and the type of training for the individual students varies largely. I'm not going to say one thing to a pre-K student that I would say to a high school student, and vice versa. And now I get to share it with the parents. Okay? I love this. It's a standard response protocol. There's 4 actions: lockout, lockdown, evacuate, and shelter. Every action has a directive. I get ahead of myself, I apologize. Each action has followed by a directive. Lockout, secure the perimeter. Why would we lock out? Something dangerous outside the school building or off campus. A robbery, bank robbery. Man leaves on foot. No one knows for sure where he's at. To make our children safer, we are probably going to go on a lockout. The next slide will kind of give you an idea of how lockout works. And these videos that I'm fixing to show you is going to show district-wide how a lockout and a lockdown work.
Lockouts are typically called for by law enforcement officials.
Hi, this is Evan with the Broomfield Police Department.
Or district personnel.
A lockout. Okay, thank you for the information. Bye-bye.
Attention students, we're in lockout, secure the perimeter. Lockout, secure the perimeter.
The goals of a lockout are to get all students and staff inside the building.
Guys, come on in. You need to get inside. Go up to the first classroom on the right. Hurry, 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 hurry.
And then lock all exterior doors. In most cases of a lockout, it will be business as usual inside the school. However, in some cases, a lockdown may also be issued in conjunction with a lockout, particularly if the threat is near the school.
Another thing it doesn't tell you about in the video, with a lockout, there's increased law enforcement presence around all schools. It's business as usual inside the building. As long as the students don't have to leave the building, business as usual, same as any other day. Lockdown. This is the one, yeah. Locks, lights, and out of sight. Why lockdown? Something dangerous inside the building. Ms. Thomas alluded to it. It's not necessarily the worst case scenario. It's not always necessarily because something terrible is happening. If there's a 911 call to our dispatch and they say that somebody's fixing to do something at the school, it's just a call, but in order to protect the children, we're probably going to lock down until we can check the validity of that call. And this is how a lockdown is going to look.
If you're in a classroom when a lockdown is called, the main thing to remember is locks, lights, out of sight. As students gather in a safe area of the room, lock the door and turn off all lights. Have everyone in the room move to a location that is out of sight. Pick an area of the room that can't be seen from interior windows. An actual lockdown may not be resolved for several hours. Here's how you should wait. Stay in the safe location. Don't move around the room. Remain silent. Staff, take written attendance of who is in the room. Note anyone missing and if you have any extra students or staff.
Evacuate to a location. Evacuation, we've been doing them for years, at least a drill. In essence, a fire drill is an evacuation drill. You leave the building, you've evacuated the building. I'm sorry. Get ahead of myself then. For example, what you may hear over the intercom, evacuate to a location. What I'm using as an example is the high school. Evacuate to the stadium. Evacuate to the stadium. In the event of more catastrophic event, we have several off-site evacuation areas already lined out. My wife, I don't know where she went. She ran off. My wife and I talk constantly about this kind of stuff, and We've been to some of the sites. We've talked about how we're going to do the reunification part, how we're going to set it up. But what I need for y'all to understand is if students have to be moved to an off-site reunification location, this is what we're going to use to get parents back with students. It keeps the students in a general, keeps them in a, not a confined, but a general area, and it keeps the accountability. That's the word I'm looking for. It maintains the school's accountability, plus it gets you back with your students a lot quicker than just come get your student. In order to get y'all a little bit more prepared for that, we have these cards printed out that when you come to the building, wherever it be, we're going to ask you to fill, there'll be what is called a greeter. Going to walk up, tell you how the reunification method works, and they're going to start just giving you instructions on how to fill this card out. Try to calm anybody down that's a little bit amped up. Instructions are on the back of it. Now, this is one of those pretty bad scenarios, so one of the things that the I Love You guys really loves to point out is instruction number 6. Please don't shout at school or district staff. What you have to understand on top of that is at the reunification area, there's already police officers there before students or parents show up. Shelter for a hazard using a safety strategy. I think we know what a shelter is. One of the best examples around here is a tornado. And this could be another reason that we would have an off-site reunification area. During a hazard, be prepared for the unexpected. Being prepared for the unexpected just kind of goes into a whole different spectrum of everything. Parent actions. This is what we would like for you to take into account whenever any of the actions takes place. Take into account and what would better help us keep your child safe and get them back with you quicker. The first one, that's why I started with it. It's the hardest one. Stay home. If we go in a lockout and you show up to the school, you're not getting in, you're not getting your child. We're in a lockout, there's a danger outside the building, so just stay home. We're protecting the children by keeping them in and any possible threat outside. Stay connected. If we're in a lockout or a lockdown, and then eventually we do a controlled release, or we move to an off-site reunification location, the only way that the school is going to be able to get a hold of you is by your phone. And if you don't have a updated phone number, the school is not going to be able to get a hold of you. The district. Let me rephrase that. District. Stay ready. Whenever a reunification happens, one thing that is required at the reunification area is your ID. You're going to have to show a valid picture ID and be on the emergency contact list for the student that you're picking up. Just make everything go a lot faster. And be prepared. By being prepared, you have the ride, you have the ID, you're ready to come get your child. This is me, Corporal Dwayne Ward, School Resource Officer. This is my email, Dwayne.Ward. If y'all have any questions, any concerns, I think Bab's going to cover this here in just a second. Feel free to contact me. If you can contact me via email or ask me tonight after this, I will do my best to answer any questions that you have. And I am going to turn it over to Bab. Mr. Bab. You're doing a good job of hiding, Bab. At any rate, one of the best things that I love about this, and I know what he's doing, there he is. One of the best things, ladies and gentlemen, that I really love about this is your child starts at pre-K. They don't go to the next school and have to learn a different terminology. Then the next school and have to learn a different terminology. have to learn a different set of way that we want to do things. It's going to be the same from their first day of school so they walk out as a senior. That's one of the best things about this program. And I would invite anybody to go to iloveyoguys.org and look at the SRP dashboard. As of right now, Arkadelphia is the only red dot in Arkansas. But if you'll look nationwide, the nation's covered with the SRP. Okay?
All right, we'll go over some of the ways how the district will communicate with you, and this has actually changed over the last month. We mentioned that we met in January or February about some of these situations, and then we had the lockout and with the bank robbery, and we had said before that if we're in a lockout, we'll put it on social media, but we probably wouldn't send out an emergency notification because there's not really an imminent threat. So we probably wouldn't do that. Oops, that's not the right thing to do. So what we've done is anytime that we will issue any of these 4 notifications, we're going to send out the emergency notification, because what we had a parent who may be at work all day and not on Facebook and didn't see anything. She gets a call from someone who's not a parent, and that's just not good form. So we did change that. So anytime that we go on that we get a phone call, Dr. Turner gets a phone call, and Officer Ward relays it to us, we'll use our district notification system. That's where we have your phone numbers on file at each school, and we will send out notifications through the notification system and through our social media outlets. Most of you would see that on Facebook. A sample message. Obviously, this is not going to be verbatim, but school name is in lockout, and if we can say due to the reason, we would include that. Nobody in or out, no imminent threat, quote, business as usual, more updates to come. We have a great relationship with our police department, Chief Jackson, Officer Ward, Sharon, everybody. They understand that when parents are in this type of situation, they want to hear information, so they're sensitive to that, but they also know that there are only certain things, as cases are going, as investigation and as pursuits are going of a criminal, there are only so many things that they might be comfortable saying in the middle of an emergency. So that's an example of one text we might say. School name, obviously school name, we would say Parrott, Peak, entire district. That's a generic term there. Is in lockdown. If we can say due to the reason, we would say students are in lockdown procedures. Parents, stay home, stay informed, be ready. More info to come. And as we got permission from our local law enforcement, we would send out more information to parents to notify them of what's going on. This would include, say we get word from the local law enforcement that the suspect for whatever was causing the lockdown or lockout is in custody. That's when we would say school name, lockout, lockdown has been lifted. The situation has been resolved by local law enforcement, and business as usual. Students are back in school, in classes, and we're under normal schedule. This is what was sent out if we were to have an incident, we would include the pictures, because, let's be honest, lockout and lockdown are similar terms. When you hear lockout, a lot of times you think lockdown. And if I'm a parent and I hear something's going on at the school, sometimes I automatically go to worst case scenario. So that's why we're hoping that if we can associate the pictures with the different levels or stages or whatever you want to call it, actions, thank you, that may help ease some too. So obviously, this is from February 21st. We had, due to the situation in the local bank, Arkadelphia Police Department has advised all APSD campuses to go on lockout. That means no one is allowed in or out of campuses until further notice. We have been advised that there is no imminent threat to our campuses. So this is what would go on social media, and from here on out, this is what would also be sent to the emergency notification system that would come to your phone. And then we included the picture. Later, I guess that was a couple hours later, we were going to put an update on this and another post, just so the way these posts work. I posted this one, the first one, at 9:30 or whatever time it happened. And even after the suspect was after they lifted the lockout at 11:04, Still that afternoon at 2 o'clock, people are sharing the first one that we're still in lockout. And so I had to go back and change that one to say update. We're not in lockout anymore. So that's the kind of example of a social media posting. Let me go over the reunification method really quickly. And district administration, our transportation department, that could be a reunification at school, or Officer Ward mentioned also it could be off-site. There are instances that if there is a fire at the school and the school has, a bunch of the school has been burned or something, there is an instance where students may have to be transported to a predetermined site. Now, each building principal knows where they would try to go to, but that's not something that they necessarily want to share with people in the event. If you can understand, kind of go with the thinking there. If it is an emergency event and someone knows where 500 students are going to be reunified with their parents in advance, they could plan something there too. So in the event that the students have to be taken en masse from this campus, say it's Central, from this campus to whatever site, Ms. Prince and Officer Ward know that is the reunification. They have coordinated with our transportation to have buses over here, enough buses to take every student to that site, and that's when we would notify, for instance, all Central primary students have been transported to X site to be reunified with parents. Parents can go to this site and begin the reunification process, and that's where you would go there. And that's where we plead with you to please go in an orderly manner and resist every parental, motherly, fatherly, grandmotherly urge you have to go to the front of the line and get your baby before she gets her baby. Because I'm thinking, I have 3 kids. I would want to get my 3 kids, all right? But as the school district, if it's Central Primary would have 400 kids that they have to make sure get to their correct legal guardian or parent. So that's why in this event there would be a formal procedure. Without getting into too much detail, obviously that takes organization as well, and that's what Officer Ward is in the process of doing with staff and local law enforcement. So those are some of the ways that we would notify you. Let's go into some of the questions that we've had, and I thought of a couple as we were back there, and one of them was kind of expounding upon that reunification method. What if? This is where we kind of got off track in our 2 previous meetings, is you can what if a situation to death. You can say, well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? You may want to address this more, but if these are not specific to any certain type of event. I don't know if I'm communicating that clearly enough or not, but we could what if ourselves. There's no way to say, if this happens, then we're going to do a lockdown, because you just can't. It's all going to be up to the individual situation. But we could what if ourselves to death. This may be where afterwards, if you have questions for Officer Ward, if you have specific questions that you want to email him or ask him afterwards, that he might be able to answer questions a little bit more than we could there. What is a typical response time for law enforcement?
Okay, first off, I'm going to give you the nationwide average. Nationwide average is 3 minutes. Who wants to hear the Arkadelphia average? Now, we're talking about a school event. Y'all, depending on what school, you're not looking at more than a minute to a minute and a half. Because, there's not one of these people up here that wouldn't, kill themselves to get there to try to save lives. They would stand up and tell you the exact same thing. Am I lying when I say about a minute and a half? They're all nodding their head yes. It's about a minute and a minute and a half. So, and that's, I could go into a lot more, but that's a minute to a minute and a half. Ladies and gentlemen, after about 5 to 10 minutes, there will be anywhere between 20 to 30 officers at a school. Okay? And then within the hour, we're probably looking at probably closer to 100.
What happens when schools are in lockout or lockdown at 3:05? Or that, I use that because I was at the high school last year, and that's when the high school dismisses. Pick your school's dismissal time that your student is at, and unfortunately, the answer is they will remain in lockout or lockdown. So could you kind of briefly go over that, what that looks like at that crucial time of the day when you have a bunch of parents there already?
I have to remember a serious topic. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to stay serious about it. The way it works is nobody wants to be there after 3:05 or after 2:55 or after 2:50 or after 3. That's when the kids are designed to go home. And that's what I had to explain to the students at the high school. If we keep you here after 3:05, it's because we are genuinely concerned about your safety. Now, what I've suggested to several of the schools is 3, whatever time the school gets out. But if we're still rocking on with a lockout or a lockdown, what we're going to move towards is a controlled release. And what I mean by controlled release is, instead of you pulling up and meeting your child at a car, more than likely what would happen is you would have to pull up, get out, come inside, and sign your child out. That's providing it's at the school. But the only way that's going to be able to happen is with, like I was talking before, that added law enforcement presence at the school to make sure that your child is safe until y'all get away from the school.
If schools are in lockout, lockdown during lunch, can I eat with my child or check them out to go eat? The answer would be no. This is kind of similar to what happened in February when we had the event. It's 11 o'clock. 11:04 is when we were notified, so we're getting to lunchtime for several of our grades, and people are coming to the door, and they wanted to get in to eat, and so I'm sorry, we're in lockout. And said, we're in what? So no, you would not be able to check your student out, nor would you be able to go in if we're on lockout or lockdown. Lockdown would be obvious, lockout would be the same. What if my child has I skipped one. The other one we had put up here is, what if I'm at a doctor's appointment? Say Wednesday's a big orthodontist day in town, and I'm at the orthodontist. All right, and then my appointment's at 11:30. 12:30, I hear that the school's in lockout, and we get done at the orthodontist at 12:30. Don't bring your kid back to school if they're in a lockout. They're not going to let your student in. So just think about that. If I'm at a doctor's appointment and I hear they've gone on lockout or lockdown since I left, common sense would be don't take them back, especially if it's at that campus. But no, keep them. They're not going to go back into school. What if my child has a substitute teacher and an emergency happens? Ms. Thomas addressed this, and the process, I believe, they're trying to get those forms that you had out there put in all of the substitute folders when they have, and also they're working on lanyards. They all have lanyards for that certain event, and I'm getting nods from the principal. So substitute teacher would have a lanyard with the instructions on the back of those to tell what to do in a certain event like that. Where can I learn more about the SRP and how it pertains to my child or children's schools? The website is iloveyoguys.org. It is I love the letter U, not I love Y-O-U. It's I love you, the letter U, guys.org. And you can learn all about it there. And obviously, if you have family, friends in other school districts, they may use different terminology, different programs out there. All of them have the same goal. This is just the one that Arkadelphia is adopting and using. So it will be standard from K through 12 for our students. Obviously, I think Officer Ward gave you his email address a little bit earlier, but we'll leave that up, and you can email him or talk to him afterwards. I know my son is in first grade. He said, what meeting do you have tonight? I said, well, we've got to talk about the standard response protocol. He looked at me. He said, the what? And I said, well, the gorilla in the hallway movie you watched in school. He said, oh, I know what you're talking about. That's one of the ways that they talk to the younger kids about it is say, pretend there's a gorilla in your hallway. What do you do if there's a big gorilla in your hallway? And that's how they phrase it for the younger. There are a couple of videos on that website that are age appropriate for the youth, the younger ones like that one was. But then there also are some for middle school and some for high school, obviously, because the students who are older can process this a little bit differently and more better, I guess, than some of the younger ones. So your students should be aware of this. If they have been listening, he said, "We did that a long time ago." I said, "Well, good. I'm glad you know glad you know what they're talking about." He may not know it by standard response protocol, but if there's a gorilla in the hallway, he knows what to do. So anyway, thank you again for coming tonight. Again, if you have any more questions, feel free. We'll be down here. As far as principals, Ms. Callie Hunley from Parrott Primary is here. If you have a student at Parrott, I didn't tell them I was going to do this to sell them out beforehand, so I'll buy you a coffee or something. Shannon Prince from Central, Ms. Mary Snowden from Peak Elementary, and you heard from Ms. Thomas from Goza, and obviously Officer Ward, any of our law enforcement are here as well. But thank you again for coming. Feel free to take a couple of copies of the forms and give them to your neighbor who didn't come tonight, and then have a good rest of the evening.